Hello, this is Coach Wilson, and this is Chapter 2, Section 3. Today we're going to continue our view of the early formation of government in the United States and talking about a new Constitution. We left off in Section 2 with talking about the Articles of Confederation, and we're going to pick up today with some of this information on the Constitution itself. Now, the Constitution was written in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention. Right, and if you remember from the Articles of Confederation, it needed 9 out of 13 states in order to ratify it. Remember, ratify means to pass. Now, if they were going to amend the Articles of Confederation, it would have required all 13, but they were going to throw it out and institute a whole new law. But they still needed over 50% of all of the colonies to agree, which is not going to be easy to do. It did end up getting ratified with the other four outlying colonies or states saying that they would have to automatically ratify it, but it goes into effect in 1789. James Madison, who was one of the primary writers on the Constitution, is known as the father of the Constitution. Okay, so we get some background there as well. As far as influences on the Constitution, one of the first is the Magna Carta, which was passed in 1215, I believe, and it was agreed to by the King of England. And the reason that they did this was it's kind of like a constitution for him, and it gave certain rights to all Englishmen, okay, which included the right to a jury. All right, and the Magna Carta is the rule of law, meaning that even the king had to be under some kind of law. And that is kind of the basis of our government today. If you look at, we've tried to balance out the president, the legislative branch, the judicial branch. All of these people are kind of tied to some sort of balance to where they can't just do anything they want. It kind of restricts absolute power. We also gained influence from the Albany Plan of Union, which was a plan to unify the colonies. Ben Franklin wrote that back when we were talking about the French and Indian War. And the French and Indian War, remember, was between France and England over the colonial territories. And the colonies at that time thought they may join together and try to basically form maybe their own military, but essentially protect their assets and their way of life. And then obviously it didn't work out so well, and many other problems ensued. But we're not going to worry about that because we just want to talk about the influences on the Constitution. Now, one of the other influences that our Constitution had was the British Parliament. It had a two-house legislature, okay? And the English Bill of Rights had inspired the United States to create its own Bill of Rights, so much so that there were many who were opposed to the Constitution and would not agree to it unless there was a Bill of Rights attached to it. And thankfully, the leading candidate for president of the newly formed country, George Washington, all but said, I will make sure this happens. Okay, we will have a Bill of Rights added to the Constitution of rights that cannot be infringed on by the government for the American people. One of the other influences that we had was the Mayflower Compact and the House of Burgesses, okay, and having a popular sovereignty where the people are able to vote and advocate for what they want in the country, but also the House of Burgesses and having representatives who represent those people. So yes, we're going to allow these people to vote and have a voice in the government, but we're also going to have representatives who represent the voice that they're trying to speak up through. If that makes sense. So representative government, but still giving the people the ability to vote to influence their representatives. All right. Now, one of the issues here in the Constitution that we came with was there was this idea of how are we going to set up our legislative branch. All right, and remember I told you that they gained their influence from the English Parliament. The problem is that at first the Virginia plan was proposing that all the representatives, okay, in Virginia or in the newly formed Constitution would be based on population. Okay, so if you had a large population in your state, then you were going to get a large amount of representatives. Okay, the problem is that hurt little states like New Jersey, Rhode Island, these states that didn't have large populations because they would have no power in the legislative branches, so in the Senate or the House of Representatives in today's government. But in that case, it would have been just any kind of legislative body they created, they would have had no power. Okay, The second plan that was proposed was New Jersey. Okay, and the New Jersey plan proposed that each state had the same number of representatives and favored states with small populations. Here's the problem. A state like, let's say, we'll go back to New Jersey, let's say they've got a population of 60,000 people. But then in Virginia around this time, let's say it's around 250, 300,000. That would mean that the same power that that huge state of population has is the same amount that New Jersey has as a state. That's not good. Okay, you've got to have a balance of power there. So what they come up with is the Great Compromise. Okay, and the Great Compromise combined these two plans. All right, and they took Virginia plan and said it would be the House of Representatives. Okay, we'll have one house that's based on population, but then we're going to take another house and we're going to create one off the New Jersey plan, which is the Senate, and it will have equal representation. Okay, and we ended up making it to where there was 2 senators from each state, regardless of population. Oh, went too far. Now, we also wanted to balance a strong central government. Now, the Bill of Rights is going to protect the people, but we also wanted to have a central government that was stronger than what it was under the Articles of Confederation. So the Constitution established a federal system of government, and federal system means federalism. Okay, and federalism is the balance of power between state and national. So what they want to do is, even though they want to have a strong central government, they also want to balance this power out between the states and the actual federal government. So you have federal level, state level, then you have local level. All right, and they wanted all 3 of those levels to have some balance of power to where one did not always dominate the other. The national government has the power to tax, print money, raise an army, and regulate trade, all things they struggle to do in the Articles of Confederation. And the Constitution also is going to create a new position known as the president and an executive branch in which will carry out the laws. And as we talked about in section 2 with some of the rebellions like Daniel Shea and his rebellion of farmers, we have to have some way to, or somebody who, when some insurrection happens in the country, can carry out the law and order, hey, we're not going to let this happen. We're sending the military. We're going to make sure the law is enforced in this place. Okay? So there's 2 big groups during this time that are we need to talk about with the Constitution. The first is the Federalists, and they supported the Constitution. All right, and they supported the Constitution so much that they believed that it needed to have a strong central government, and that we needed to limit the rights of the states, and that there needed to be a group who was in control. Now, it didn't mean they wanted to take rights away. It just meant they wanted a strong federal government. The problem is that even if they didn't really care or really worry about taking people's rights away, the anti-federalists or the other group, they were worried about that. They were opposed to the Constitution, and they demanded a Bill of Rights. It's what I mentioned earlier. And George Washington is going to appease these anti-federalists and get the Constitution passed because of his promise to add a Bill of Rights. So the anti-federalists backed off a little bit, said, okay, we will agree to the new Constitution if you give us a Bill of Rights, all right? And the Bill of Rights ensured people's rights were protected. So that is all I have for you today, guys. I know we went through that very quickly, but please make sure you're keeping up with your notes. We finished up our vocabulary for Chapter 2. If you did your vocabulary, it should help you with the information here that we finished off with in the slides. And then we'll be moving on into Chapter 3 here very, very soon. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, make sure you're keeping up with your vocabulary, bell ringers, and your notes. And I hope you have a great day. I will talk to you soon.